were going to check it in when we did it.
Because, I mean, I don't know how you look at it. That's what I mean. Can I look at it as first time, or can I look at it as a replacement? Because, I mean, in here, let's see, full basement, not full basement. You can go down to 5 feet.
If we take the square footage off and we move it back, well, then we want to be able to square these things off. So let's say we just take and put that there, make it more rectangular when we put a real foundation in.
Because when you figure out your footprint,
Yeah.
you go by what's existing right now. So no matter if you took this off and moved it back here, it doesn't really matter. Because at the beginning of it, this is where it is. So you have that volume. That's what I was talking about. You can use.
My name is Mary Quirk, and I am the administrative assistant for code enforcement, for zoning, and for the planning board. I'm also the recording secretary for both zoning board and planning board. My responsibilities are intake of all permit applications, assisting with the completion of those, reviewing them for completeness, forwarding those to the code enforcement officer, Scott Dvorak, except for the plumbing and electrical, which I process. I keep a record of all incoming permits and pertinent information. Once they are returned from Scott, if they're approved, I record them in a database and complete any necessary sections of them and call the applicants to let them know that their permits have been approved. I also handle 90% of the incoming phone calls. Any that I can handle, I do so. Any that I can't handle or need a more authoritative voice, I've put into Scott's call queue in our calendar program here, and help him keep track of those and what the priorities are. In addition, I handle all the scheduling of his appointments and for all the inspections out of office or meetings in the office, and include the appointment from the Google Calendar so that he knows what the topic is. I put as much information as I can into those appointments, who it is, when it is, locations, any questions they have confided in me, any concerns, any history that I know of on the matter. Most of my job is taken up supporting Scott and making sure that he can make the best use of his limited time.
Hi, my name is Scott Dvorak. I'm the code enforcement officer for Town of Raymond. I replaced Chris Hansen, who moved on to Wyndham in October, end of October. I was a code officer, assistant code officer in Gorham for 4 years. Moved to Raymond, job appeared. I thought it would be a great fit. I have construction experience. I have 33 years of construction experience in Bridgeton, so I thought that the code office was a good choice. I do enjoy working in a smaller town as opposed to the bigger town. The Town of Raymond, I understand, is somewhat similar to Bridgeton in that it has an influx of summer population growth, which could make it interesting in the summer. It has been a learning experience for me, coming from a bigger town to a smaller town. It's actually a lot more involved than what I really envisioned, but in a good way, constantly learning new stuff. We try to be, between Mary and I, Mary's a first. She'd be the one that you contact first. She will try to answer as best she can, and then if not, then she passes it on to me.
Anybody coming up to that window is going to get my attention, and I will do everything I can to help them. I am kind of you've seen the sign that says gatekeeper. Scott needs to stay focused on a lot of things, so I try to intercept as many people as possible and help them at this level. If I can't, then if Scott is available, I can get them in to see him. Our goal is to help you achieve your idea while adhering to all the codes and regulations. If you come in with, I'd like to do this, and it's not possible under the ordinances and the regulations and building codes, part of what Scott does is sit down with the person and say, okay, we can't do this, but if you change this, or if we modify this, then we can do that. So it's not saying, no, you can't do that, and you're done. It's, let's see if we can find some way to make this work for you. It may not be exactly what you want, but we'll do our best to get as close to it as possible.
the main objective is that, well, there's several kind of intertwined. The biggest one is to make sure all the ordinances that the town had passed are being followed. My job is to make sure that they are, and also to inform the public, because a lot of times they are unsure as to what they need. They call and ask what they need to do, if it's possible to do it. So I'm it's a informative yet a teaching mode at the same time. The other aspect is the building part. It's to make sure that they meet the code, statewide code, the MUBEC code, which is a minimum. I try to explain that to me. I can't grade on workmanship, but there's a minimum and they have to at least meet that. A lot of times, well, some of the calls that I do get are, my contractor says I need to do this, is this what he needs to do? And we go, basically just kind of ask them what it is that they're doing, and then I'll talk to them, look it up if I have to, if I don't know it right off the top of my head.
Testing 1, 2.
I've
Testing
been
1, 2.
having Good evening and welcome to the Select Board meeting. Today's August 21st. Everybody's here. Can I have a motion for the minutes of July 19th, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Have a motion for July 31st minutes.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Okay, I'm going to jump over A just to see if Bob O'Neill happens to stop.
I don't believe he intends to.
Okay, then I'm not going to jump over. Consideration of appointment of Bob O'Neill to the planning board. And Bob O'Neill was on the planning board before, had to take some time off, and is back.
I move that we appoint Bob O'Neill. Approve his appointment.
Second.
I was on the planning board with him for 2 terms, and he's great. So
Any discussion?
He's an exceptional volunteer. I think it's a great move.
yeah, I'm very glad to have him back.
I'm glad he's back. All in favor? All right. Next thing, consideration to release the covenant for David and Tammy Knights. Scott, this one's yours.
So to give you some background, in the folder, David Knight had an accessory apartment that was permitted back in 1990. However, there was at those time accessory apartments were not allowed. They were called in-law apartments, and a lot of times there were stipulations given to them that they could only be rented out to in-laws, and when that in-law either deceased or moved, they had to been taken out. Most of them that I've dealt with before just basically were very generic like that. However, the one, and I've actually found another one for one on Spiller Road that they use the exact same one, and because of the wording that it says that it goes with the heirs and the assigners. After talking to the town attorney, Phil Saucier said that it's signed by Jack Cooper, that the town actually owns that covenant. So the only way to release it is one, the town could, or the lawyer could draw up, for Mr. Knight's, draw up a piece of paper, a document that would do away with the in-law or the family member part of it. What that would do is get rid of the in-law apartment altogether. He would have to then reapply for an accessory apartment under the ordinances that we have today, which are size requirements, septic system. And basically, Mr. Saucier said that that's what we needed to be done. I emailed him that document that needs signatures, and he said that that would suffice.
Can I ask a question on this? All right, so this is changing over. One, I'm surprised the town actually owns it. So it's kind of like a condition that the town put on that property.
I haven't, the wording of it, that's when I first saw it, the wording of it. I haven't seen something like that. Usually it just says that you're allowed to rent it out, very generic, to your mother or whatever until she passes, and then it has to be removed.
I heard the discussion.
And this one, it
on
just
that.
stayed with the land, basically the way it's written, no matter who owns that house. If the Knights sold it and somebody else bought it, they'd still be restrained
Under
by
that
this
same-
document.
So if we release it and it gets turned over into a different, I'm assuming another apartment.
Well, right now, if you just release it, it just means that you get rid of that part where it has to be rented out to in-laws. However, it also gets rid of the accessory apartment, so he has to reapply for it. Because basically what we're doing is wiping the accessory apartment off the books. And he has basically, so right now, once that's signed, there is no accessory apartment.
It's
So
just a house.
It's just a house, so he would have to then reapply for an accessory apartment.
If he does do an accessory apartment, how does that work as far as codes go?
There is a size restriction of 700 square feet. I would also have to look and make sure how many bedrooms are in the house don't exceed the bedrooms of the septic system that he has currently in the ground.
Okay. Anybody have questions for Scott?
Is this in the area that we are going through, that we just put the moratorium on so the planning board can look at the overall ordinances there?
Yeah, it's in the roundabout area, yes.
So why are we not waiting until the new ordinance is done?
Well, this is a separate dwelling. This is his main dwelling. This is totally 2 different lots.
There's
This
3.
already has a dwelling on it. It already has a house. There's no mobile home or type 1 manufactured home going on this.
There's 3 dwellings.
There's 3
well,
lots.
No, 3 lots. His house, then Lot A, Lot B. And I think Lot A is the A in question regarding the manufactured home,
Yep.
more, whatever, modular, whatever it is. And then Lot B, there's nothing. So
Yep.
there's 3 different properties is what it is.
This just came about in looking at, going through some of the reviewing process, that's when it came up, that this document was in his building folder for his main, for the house, for the principal dwelling.
Okay, but when the planning board looks at the redo on the ordinance that they're going to be doing, will apartments be part of their charges, looking at that too? So what I'm getting at is, if all of a sudden we do this, now we're essentially then grandfathering in something that may not be what the ultimate allowance is.
As the ordinances currently stand, accessory apartments are allowed in all residential areas. So it doesn't matter if it's shoreland, it doesn't matter if it's rural residential or rural. They are allowed in there. By allowing this, I mean, to me, I guess to me it's there's 2 different issues there. This, could he put a accessory apartment where the mobile homes, if he could fit it in there? Yes. I don't know if he could or he couldn't. But it's nothing that's being grandfathered in. It's already an allowed use in shoreland zoning as it stands right now. It doesn't fall under the moratorium because it's just an accessory apartment. So to your answer, I don't think that it would add to anything in there that isn't already permitted now currently. That doesn't fall under the moratorium.
So, but right now it would just go back to a regular house until an application was taken out.
Correct. Yes. And have to do, like I said, do a walkthrough, check the square footage, make sure that it matches what's allowed for today. He may have to change walls around, turn some into common space, mechanical rooms, storage, or something like that. But he would
Does
have
it
to
come like almost like a small house type thing? You do all like the
Well,
electrical and stuff like that?
If it's already in there, I mean, it was already permitted, inspected, and okayed. We're just getting rid of the accessory apartment as a
Restriction.
yeah, as an in-law restriction on that accessory apartment.
Okay. Sorry.
I understand this to be an attached unit to a primary building, is that correct?
It's
or is
the
this
basement.
It's a basement, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's
So
in
there's
the primary
there's no expansion of the dwelling for this accessory apartment at all.
Does it require a separate electrical, separate?
Not really, not under the, I mean, electrical code, yeah, they may have to have a sub panel down there, which they may already have already. As long as basically they can still run it under the same one, it doesn't have to have a separate meter. Just have to look at what the load is for the outlets. If it exceeds 80% of a circuit, then they need to make another one. And like I said, usually the biggest one is the septic system. If he exceeds it, the state of Maine looks at it as a minor expansion. So if he only exceeds it by 1 bedroom, however, now he's in the shoreland zoning. If he exceeds it, it has to be put in. Where if it was outside the shoreland zoning, he could get what they call a one-time bedroom variance.
Yeah.
But because in shoreline, if it doesn't match, then he has to get the expansion.
I'm sorry, the expansion of...
Septic system.
Okay, so that's right. That's what I thought. I know. He's going to say keep up. I know he is. Okay, here's my concern then, that's been brought up. In light of the fact that watching these other meetings, that we're tying septic in then with the other properties, are we okaying this property and still waiting for the outcome of property A or B?
Yes.
I think it is.
Yep.
So meanwhile we okay this, but how does that work with the whole septic system then? Because it's still a big question, I believe.
Well, the septic system, which I've talked to the state. I mean, basically, he can go into that property, cross his own property, and tie into that new septic system that's put in, because that is a 10-bedroom system. So if he ties into that, he can. He still is under the 3 or more shared. When it's 3 or more shared, then there has to be a maintenance agreement.
3 or more shared what?
Septic system, or 3 or more are hooked into it.
So would that be considered 2 just out of the first house?
It's just 2. It'd be,
And then
it'd be
the
this
third one
mobile
would be?
home, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And there are, well, septic system, I don't want to dwell on that, but there are different size septic systems. I mean, they're not all the same size.
No, yeah, I mean, there are different sizes. It's all based on bedrooms.
Yeah.
And depending on how many bedrooms, that's how a system, when it comes into me, will say how many bedrooms this services. It doesn't really say which dwelling. It says it can serve so many duplexes, but it's just based on bedrooms. And like I said, he can connect to it. However, if he was to ever sell it, he would want to have some kind of easement in there so that, because basically if somebody else was to buy that property, there was no easement, he could literally cut him off from using that septic system if he wanted to.
That would be tricky down the line.
I've seen
That
it
would
with
be
water.
Really?
Yes. 2 buildings were owned by the same person. One well serviced both of them. They bought individual lots. The guy that had the well on his lot asked if that guy had an easement. Found out he did not. Cut the water supply off to his house. He
Yeah.
had to drill a whole new well because there was no easement for him. He had no right.
Whoa.
But
That would
because
be
they were
nasty.
because they were both under the same ownership type.
All right.
One more.
Yep, go ahead.
If we proceed favorably with this, then anything else done after this date has to come in under current law and not grandfathered law. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right.
So again, I guess it goes back to my comment where it's a whole new structure,
Yeah.
basement.
Yeah, basically we're just saying
Apartment.
we're taking the accessory
Yep.
apartment away from you, in-laws and everything. You have to reapply now to become under today's
Is this a walkout basement?
I have not been there or I haven't seen it. All I know is
Think
I looked at the
egress
paper
issues,
that's been
yeah.
permitted. I'm assuming that that's the other thing I'd look at. I don't know what the egress is
Yeah.
there, the emergency exit. There, so basically it's been the same for quite a while.
If you want to ask.
Hmm?
It's David's property if you want to ask.
I don't want to ask.
Okay. That's right. Thanks. All right, so you need a motion?
I have motion to approve.
I will second that.
All right,
I think it's good.
so discussion. Any more discussion on this?
No, I think we beat it.
Public discussion? Any public discussion?
Hi, David Murch, 2 Canal Road, Raymond, just kind of across the street from David and Tammy. Just a couple of concerns when I read the e-packet, and I'd like to publicly thank Sue for those e-packets. I think she did a tremendous amount of good information there, so thank you, Sue, for that. When reading the e-packet, this release covenant was the first time we've ever heard of it. And 2 things. Well, one thing that came out in part of this covenant, which both David and Tammy signed in 1990, says what they signed was, it said the accessory apartment will be occupied only by a person or persons legally related to me or us. We further covenant that when the apartment is no longer occupied by a person or persons legally related to me or us, it will not become a rental unit or in any other way create a 2-family premises. So like I said, we're not aware of this covenant. I am aware, though, that David and Tammy have had at least 4 to 5 people who are not family rent out that apartment since 2000. So I'm concerned how does the town work with David and Tammy on that? Because they broke the covenant. So I'm just concerned, what are the ramifications of that? And also in the email chain, which is there's a lot of conversation between Scott and Philip Saucier. But the wording's pretty vague. There's a lot, I gotta just mention a few things. It says the recorded property doesn't include Exhibit A. The most likely interpretation, it would be helpful to determine if it is not clear if, as I understand it, I suspect you are correct, was likely a restriction or some other similar type of restriction. So I'm not necessarily opposed that the town, dissolve this, but I want to make sure that we don't dissolve something without knowing exactly why this covenant was put into place. So I mean, I heard what Scott had to say, but still, the conversation between Scott and the attorney make it sound like there's a lot of assumptions being made. And I wouldn't want us to release this covenant if we're not 100% sure why the covenant was put into place originally. So
It was fairly clear.
those are my two points.
All right, I'm going to ask then, because I'm so bad on this thing. The in-law apartment, it was, in my mind, dropping that, I'm sorry, I'm addressing it to him, sorry, is dropping the in-law apartment. But again, what he just brought up, the fact that they signed off knowing that they cannot, and they agreed to not turn this into an apartment. So that was, I can understand up to a certain point as an in-law, I mean a family thing, but then to add on to also further then agree that they won't, after this whole thing is over with family, that they won't turn it into a 2 apartment or a 2-person building, a rental unit. So that to me is even something even different, I think.
Well, right now, I mean, as it stands, yes, he should not be renting it out. It would be going against the covenant that if he's renting it out to a non-family member. As it stands right now, I knew that he was trying to rent it. I didn't know if there was anybody in there at this time. So to me, it was an empty apartment. That's when we did look at this. He had asked if he could turn this into a duplex instead of an accessory apartment. We went through the discussions of it. That's when I looked at the covenant a little better. And like I said, the wording of it just didn't make sense to me. It seemed a little more restrictive than usual. However, like I said, I have come across this exact same one on Spiller Hill Road that somebody did about the same amount of time. So I don't know if it was a template that the town of Raymond used back then for in-law apartments.
The same thing as far as then turning it into a rental unit or a
It says the
two-party
exact
house?
same wording on it. And I don't know if it's something that Jack Cooper used. Like I said, a lot of them would have a template made up saying that they could rent it out to in-laws, and then it would be, you know, however they worded it. Like I said, this one just a little bit different because it just goes with the heirs and the assigns, so it wouldn't make a difference of who owned the house. But I mean, as far as the emails, I did send Phil the copy of this covenant to him, and I think you guys have a copy of the email that was sent back to me. It was a little bit of a gray area as far as what example A was. He did, I don't know if he mentioned that in his email, but I think Mr. Murch is correct that it was in there in one of our previous determinations. But when I sent him because my first question was I just wanted to know what this meant, then I felt it was better that I scan the document and send it to Phil and have him take a look at it. That's the response that I got after sending it to Phil, was that it was basically the town owns it. When it goes through book and page, deed was recorded, it was recorded, but like I said, although he said it does not include the Exhibit A reference in the document. But he basically, when I did not print out the email when I sent him the document that he wanted, that was going to be signed, that could be signed. Well, I did send that to him, however, I did not bring that back with me. I may be able to bring it up on my tablet, but.
I mean, that, you know, some of the things he, you know, when he's saying there, or, you know, what I'm reading there is that when he went and looked at the county in the Registry of Deeds, he didn't see the attachment. Well, the fact is, if we're going to release a covenant, it's irrelevant anyway. But I guess the other question is, okay, if we release a covenant, who has responsibility for filing the release? It should not be the town at that point.
No, he has to take it down to the Registry of Deeds. All you're doing would be just your signatures, and then he has to register at the Registry of Deeds.
But, you know, I guess the other question, you know, in a couple things that we're kind of going back and forth there. If this is released, he cannot At this point, he cannot rent until such time as he now comes, applies, gets and goes through and gets.
Correct.
So if in effect he had a family member that he wanted to rent it to, if we release this, he can't even do that. Right now, he could do that.
Yes.
Okay.
This is really messed up. I just wanted to say that. It's just like two separate things on here, and
Well, we were given the option that Phil said that, basically we could just decide to say that we wanted to do away with it, and we could have done it that way. Given the area where this is located, we felt that talking with the lawyer, that it was more appropriate that we did this route rather than the other route, which would be just to verbally say we're okay with it.
well, I just asked Rolf. I said, why would they have to sign this kind of a document? Was it allowed at the time?
They usually
not
weren't.
Sure,
They
that's what I was
weren't allowed.
asking.
This is the
It wasn't
only
allowed.
way they were allowed, because
Okay.
basically what the restriction was is, yes, we'll let you build an apartment for your mother-in-law, but when she dies, that apartment has to go away.
So it wasn't allowed before, but it's allowed now.
Yes. This is the only way that they would have done it back then.
Okay.
No, I guess that's it. Again, I'm concerned that having a signed covenant and Dave and Tammy actively, breaking that covenant numerous times and even trying to rent it out as of, within the past month to 2 months is concerning to me that, they signed something in good faith with the town and then specifically broke that numerous times, and even up until the time when they, speaking with Scott. So just wanted to make that point.
Well, in this case now, moving forward, if we release it, is what it is, then an application has to be filed, and there's no way they can rent downstairs if we release this, whether to family or to anybody else, until he files an application.
Until he gets an occupancy permit, which would be the final inspection by me.
The occupancy permit for the basement, or?
Yeah, because basically when he applies for the accessory apartment, we're talking basically, figuratively, we're looking at a blank slate, even though everything is in there. I would have to go in and have to look and make sure we have the right square footage. If there's any issues on there, plumbing or electrical, that I still would have to look at that as today's code. So if there would be any issues down there that don't meet today's code, we would have to address them. Depending on the severity, most likely, on some of those you can give them, they can get it fixed within a couple of days, or that they get a plumber in. Sometimes it's a minor fix. Some stuff, there is a little more leniency to them. I don't know exactly when this was put in. I'm assuming 1990, but I think it was there before then when they first started building the house. There may have been some, like what they call a drum trap, that may be allowed then. It isn't now. However, we do allow it in circumstances where old buildings are being retrofitted just in that area. It helps the drainage, so we allow them, even because it would work better than to try to make them put in a P-trap today. It wouldn't drain properly, so we let them keep the drum trap there. I mean, something like that, I would probably, if you had a drum trap underneath there, I probably wouldn't make them change it unless it was close enough. But most likely they could all be close to the main stack anyway. But if it's
He literally is sitting there talking French to me about P-traps and drum traps and everything else.
well, it's a type of a drain, and if it
Okay.
doesn't vent
I
properly,
said you're making it look like
I'm sorry. If it doesn't vent properly, it doesn't work properly. It would gurgle
Okay.
and stuff and like that.
And I get that.
Drum traps
Stuff don't
allow
go
for
down.
that.
Except don't go down.
But you can tell when that's happening because it bubbles
Yeah.
up.
Well, but it would be very limited stuff, because like Marshall just said too, is we would be everything as grandfathered anymore, but certain things would have to be.
To me, it makes sense if we go forward with this, then everything would be up to current code, and that's what we would want.
Yeah.
And someone could live in it,
Right.
Yeah.
but they
It
just
may-
couldn't
like
live in it in a rental capacity.
After
Well,
they
it's
get
an
the
apartment.
accessory apartment.
It's empty now.
But
It's
right
perfect.
now, if he could have his daughter
Yes.
live in
A
there. if
family
he
member
wanted,
could
but
be
just
in
not
there.
in a rental capacity.
Well, I mean, they still under this covenant, yeah. Until well, actually, we wipe away the covenant, so yes, technically nobody could be in there.
So technically, that is
There's
a
no
basement
accessory
and nothing
apartment at all.
else.
Yeah.
Right, it's just
Exactly.
another part of his
Correct.
house.
Yes,
Correct.
Yeah.
right.
I'm good with that.
The accessory apartments have to be attached to the house.
Nope, in Raymond, they can be detached or attached. There's no, they can do either one. There are some electrical issues that probably breakers may have to be upgraded with arc fault now and stuff. See.
It's empty now, is that correct?
I have not asked that, nor have I looked into it. I'm assuming it was since the last time I talked to him. I knew he was trying to rent it, so I assumed that it was empty. But I had no confirmation to go out there and take a look at it.
Any other questions, comments? Nope. All right. We have a motion, second, you did.
Yeah.
Just
Okay,
need to vote.
Motion.
That's the next thing, Paul.
I know that. Zip it. All in favor? Okay. All right, so as of this moment, it's no longer an apartment right
It
now.
is a house.
Okay, it's a one dwelling house. Yeah, we're gonna go back to it, yeah. I know, but we're just gonna talk to him. Tell him he doesn't get up the second time. All right, we're just gonna back up a second here because Mr. O'Neill popped his head in. We've already voted you in, but we just want to talk to you. Is him? You're not?
That's not about one.
Oh,
I just wanted the paperwork.
that's what I'm
I
saying.
just wanted the
Oh.
paperwork.
That's okay, we'll put you on
Okay,
the planning
we're not.
board.
Yeah, can you? Yeah, we can put you in as Bob O'Neill then. What do you think?
I just want, I always want you to return the paperwork to me, that's all.
It's been a long day.
all I want.
Seriously. All right, we're not going backwards. Apologize. You can be
I'm
Bob
gonna-
O'Neill for the night.
I'm gonna tell Bob O'Neill that you,
We do need people on the board so we can stick you in there. It's not a problem. God, what a long day. Need to stop now. All right, next thing up here. All right. Sorry, I'm going back up to my agenda.
Joey's still might do it if you want.
Quick claim deeds. Sue Carr's not here yet. She's still at town office. Okay, we'll come back to that because she should be here shortly. RSU withdrawal vote.
She's not coming.
No, she
No, Dawn can probably speak on behalf.
God, I'm just batting zero
I
tonight.
can, or Joey should do
Dawn
it.
can speak on behalf of.
I want to talk like Sue.
Okay, so we have a couple of quitclaim deeds without covenant. The first one is, because they're all taxes, interest, penalties, and so forth paid in full, releasing the property back to the owner. First one is Golding, Marquis, Larrabee, Marjorie A., map 54, lot 56.
Can I have a motion?
Move to approve the quitclaim deed for Golding and Larrabee and map 54, lot 56.
Second.
second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Second one is for David L. Thompson, map 16, lot 002A, 00000.
Have a motion?
Move to approve the quitclaim deed for David Thompson, map 16, lot 002A, quadrant 0.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Okay, I'll get these signatures in.
Yeah, you're all set. Have a good evening.
Yep. Thanks, Scott.
Thanks, Scott.
Thanks, Scott. All right. All right, we're going to move on to the RSU withdrawal vote update. Before I have Sue give the results on that, I just want to put an announcement out there to the public. For people to walk into an election area and berate, scream, yell, have a temper tantrum at our election workers is not okay, and it's totally inappropriate. If you've got a problem, call the town manager or call a selectman. Do not berate our election workers again, or our staff, please. It was way out of line. They felt this whole election was a farce and everything else, and they took it out on the election workers. And I had their phone number, and I call them on it.
You're
So-
talking about one person or one?
Talking about a husband and a wife.
Okay.
Yes.
Not everybody.
No, but I just want people to stop and think if they have questions, that's fine. It's okay to ask. But to yell and scream and berate people is not okay. So,
Right.
all right. Sue, do you want to give the official results?
I can do that. On August 14th, we had a special town meeting to vote by secret ballot the question, do you favor filing a petition for withdrawal with the Board of Education, authorizing the withdrawal committee to expend $50,000 over 2 years, and authorizing the select board to issue notes in the name of the town of Raymond, or otherwise pledge the credit of the town of Raymond in an amount not to exceed $50,000 over 2 years for this purpose. We had 301 voters turn out. The results were 171 yes, no was 128, and 2 were blank. And the blanks weren't totally blank. It was, people had filled out both yes and no, and we couldn't determine voter intent.
I was going to say, why would somebody show up on that?
Yeah. Bother to go to vote and then
Just
not
take a
vote.
paper in.
Yes.
So how many voters do we have?
We have 4,036 voters on the
And
list,
what percentage is?
7.5%.
I find that
Yes, that's sad.
almost embarrassing.
Well, but no, because we weren't expecting on an off election, it's the only thing they were voting on, and to have 301 people show up, technically 299 vote, because those 2 blanks, you know, I thought that was pretty good.
It was 100 more than an off-type election for a special town
Still.
meeting. That is sad, yes.
Yeah.
It's-
I agree.
Or it's 3 times more or better than you get at an annual town meeting.
Yes. Actually, 6 times more than the last annual
6
town
times more than
meeting.
the last one, okay.
One of the things is I went
Still.
up there an hour beforehand, and it was interesting to hear from people, because we're trying to figure out how to get word out to people. You know, we've got them on the signs, we've got it on Facebook, we've got it on, I had her send out the newsletter, you know, just trying to get word out, and a lot of people saw my homemade signs on the side of the road. Then they said that's how they saw it to come up, you know, and but I think the important thing is getting the information to people, and what we're going to have to work forward now here is getting that information out. And one of the concerns, you know, that the election workers were getting feedback on was that $50,000. But the last time we went for $25,000 for 1 year. This is $50,000 for 2 years. And I don't know if people just got that information or not, but so anyways, we're moving on with that, with the RSU withdrawal process. So the next steps to this is going to be, I need a motion from the board. I want to give Dawn the authorization to be the town representative for signing an agreement with Dan Stockford, which is the attorney that was here giving the presentation the other night. He is the one that will be negotiating a lot of our withdrawal agreements and that type of thing, the legal issues. And then Mark Eastman is the consultant. He could not be here, his family was in town that night. And he is a superintendent, and the 2 of them work together. They have separate fees. But he, gosh, what did they say? Like they've done like 12 of these already? I think 12 withdrawals already.
Yeah,
So they know what they're
that's
looking, they
yeah.
know the money. He was the former superintendent. So can I have a motion to have Dawn sign the agreements with them?
Move to allow town manager to enter into the consulting agreement with Eastman and Stockford
Yeah.
on terms as approved under the vote.
So it's a not to exceed number. I'm not sure what the apportionment will be, but we'll get into that, and it will be in accordance with the standard terms and conditions of the town. I'm assuming by the sound of it, it's 2 agreements?
Yes.
Correct.
And I
Okay.
said, did you get the one I sent you?
I got the one you sent me, but
was
I
a-
haven't got one for Eastman, right?
Mark,
No, Eastman's.
Oh, that was
already-
Eastman's.
That was Eastman.
that's Eastman's.
Oh, that's
And
that
then,
North and Stockford.
then I sent you Stockford's, I think also. You should have 2 today.
Okay, just before the meeting, I only had 1. I didn't.
Okay, so I'll get it to you. He has one as to how much he charges an hour.
Yeah, we'll get that taken care of.
And,
Need a second.
Yeah, second.
May I read it back, please?
You may.
Motion to authorize Town Manager Don Willard to enter into consulting agreements with Mark Eastman and Dan Stockford, terms not to exceed the monies approved at the August 14th, 2018 special town meeting by Selectman Olson.
Correct.
Okay, any more discussion? All in favor? Okay, Sue. What? I know you're typing over there. Sorry. What is our next? I believe our next one is to send letters. Oh,
I brought the steps.
Yes.
nope. Actually, what we need to sign tonight here is a letter to the Department of Education and to the superintendent of the schools.
And that's in the package that Dawn has.
And that is, I believe, step
5.
Yes.
You're saying it's in the packet here?
It's in the package, yes.
It's in your blue folder.
Okay.
It should be.
And what this
I'm
letter's
going
doing
to
is.
say no.
Did I not print it? Oh. Let me see if I can send it to print now. I am sorry.
Will it go in the back, maybe?
Original covenants.
So what this letter's done is moving us on, and then we wait for the commissioner's next step would be, I think 6 is to come back and say, put together a withdrawal committee. And then
You could approve it and sign it tomorrow, correct?
You
have
could.
people stop in.
I may be able to print it out back.
Okay.
I'm actually just trying to bring up, because I think it's going to go pretty quick, and then they have the DOE has 30 days from the date of the letter to get back to us, and then to put together our withdrawal committee. And Marshall, do you have them right there?
I have the letter, yes.
No,
What would you like?
the steps.
The steps, yes.
Steps are right there.
Steps.
Just put it in the back. There you go.
All right.
There's 22 of them.
Yeah. Do you know what's nice? There's a lot of them.
Sam's got-
Isn't what we have to do.
Sam has-
Did it work?
You do? Okay.
Sam, does he have the letter? Or it was in the
I have the letter. It's in the e-pack.
Do you have that letter printed
The
out?
letter would be in here, yeah.
If you have a printed E-Pack, you got it.
Yeah,
What
the
page?
problem is it's page 30 and 31.
25.
25.
And then go after that.
She's gonna go out and check and see which printer is out back and then send it to that printer.
I so quick today.
It'd
Oh, you
be
did-
following on there, so
No, this is quick claim deed.
Said 25, yeah.
it should be the last page.
Yep, this one be here. So you know what? We can take that and sign that, unless she has it printed out there.
Well, yeah, but if she's got it printed on this clean, it's not a clean
Yeah,
copy.
'cause, you know.
Yeah, it'd be better to have it. It'd be better
Let's do
to have her print it if she can't print
Thank you
it,
for
to approve it
If
and
she
sign
can't
it
prove
tomorrow.
we can approve it and just
So. You won't be able to? All right. Okay, so the town clerk is going to send that out. They have 30 days. Commissioner will get back. Step 6 is the commissioner will instruct us to do a 4-member withdrawal committee. And of that committee is 1 municipal officer, 1 general public, 1 member of the group filing the petition, and then 1 school board member. And then the RSU will choose their member. And then step 7 will be the chair of the RSU board calls a meeting with the withdrawal committee so we can get a chair picked, and then they back out of it. So that's like 5, 6, and 7, boom, within like 30 days here.
One of the questions that came up is that committee 4 or at least 4?
4 voting members. I did talk to Mark Eastman about that, but he says he would get it confirmed with Dan, but he is,
because I
You do the
question that
include.
because it says shall have 4 members, but it doesn't say it can't have more members.
Right.
do you know who Paula Gravel would know better on that
But I
one?
think if you can have additional members, I mean, obviously you want to have your 4 official members, you know, in the various capacities, but insofar as, I mean, this is an immense task and a, you know, critically important task, and there are a number of people who have already expressed interest who have particular expertise in this. I think it would be in the town's interest to have an additional, you know, non-voting group.
Well, right, but no, what we're talking about is the voting group, is can we have more
Right,
than
right.
4
I mean, I
voters,
get that.
or
You're
can
gonna
we
have
have
that, but then I
non-voters?
think to have additional people.
Well, we did on the
We
last
did that
time
last
around,
time.
we had, there was about, well, the initial meeting, there was about 30 people,
That's too many.
Then it windowed down to about 15.
That's
But
too
that,
many.
And that worked on subcommittee.
Yeah, I'm thinking, smaller than that, but greater than 4.
Just give it to Dawn. Thank you.
Thank you.
You know.
So, what, I guess I'm gonna ask the board then, what do you wanna do? Do you wanna do like we did before? And, anybody that's interested, send an email, to us as to, so
Probably
we
the best
know.
way.
Joe Bruno said yes, he would like to be on the board.
Well,
I did talk to him.
before we do that, I think we ought to figure out what we want the committee to do, and then
figure out who should be on the committee.
Well, not who, but who has the talents to fill the needs of the committee.
Well, that's
Well,
what I
You
meant.
don't,
I just phrased it better than you.
No, you didn't. Nobody could.
boys, back to the meeting. Sam just
Too bad
sits
we
here and
get
goes,
along.
Poke, I'm not touching you, I'm not touching you.
So really the question is, do you want people to send, anyone that is interested, to send an email in to the town manager expressing interest in being on the committee?
Yes.
I think it's too early for that.
I do too.
We don't
I
know what
agree.
they're
Right.
going to do,
Yeah.
so it's
Right.
hard for them to know if they
Right.
have qualifications
I think it's
for
too
it,
exactly.
because we
Right.
we haven't told them what they're going to have to deal with.
But sometimes,
That's what everybody's saying.
but sometimes having them there at the beginning helps to follow through the whole
But we're
process.
not even
But we
at the
don't
beginning
know.
yet.
But we are at the beginning. Actually, we're not at the beginning, we're on step 5, 6, and 7.
Well, we're not at that beginning. We're at the pre-race, not the race.
How do people know that they can deal with what they're going to have to deal with if they don't even know?
A lot of numbers involved.
That's what everybody's saying.
You know what, I'm gonna make
He
you guys,
phrased it a
I'm
lot
gonna make you
better
guys,
than
Thank you.
now you're being nice to him?
No,
That's just
yeah,
one-
that
that's
was
just
very
one shot,
short.
that's
He
one-
was being nice to me so he could crap on him. So,
I'm game on anything. I did the hard part. I got the signatures. I got this thing in. So I have to be on this committee just because I did the petition. So I am willing to go with whatever you guys want to do, to be honest.
I'd like to be an ex officio member, so you need a communicator. And that's what I've done all my life.
So you'd be on this committee with us?
I think
I'm not exactly with you.
I know that. That's why I'm questioning that. I know. He wants to put in his 2 cents, Rolf.
It's fine. I think
a subcommittee is
we want
appropriate, but I
people
think
to-
it's
yeah,
too early
we
to
want
appoint
people
a
to put in
subcommittee.
their
I do
2
too,
cents.
yeah.
Well, here's the cool thing is I won't be chair of that committee, so I'm not going to make that decision. So when that board is picked, then you guys can
I
decide.
don't have to worry,
Yep,
I won't
exactly.
nominate you again. Ever.
Are we moving right along here?
You already just said.
Yeah.
Don't worry, I'll never nominate you again, ever. Yeah, we're moving along.
Okay.
Sam's irritating me. All right, let's see. All right, so,
Okay, so do we need a motion to approve this letter?
yes.
Make a motion to approve the letter as drafted dated August 21st to the commissioner, starting the withdrawal process.
Second.
Hold on. Any discussion? All in favor? All right, let's sign that. So that thing gets sent. This meeting needs to get over. No, but you've seen me mad before, so I don't know if you want to butt heads with me, do you?
Whoops, wrong button.
Yeah, they're at.
Left yourself wide open there, Sam.
I wanted to give her a chance.
Give me a
It's
chance.
done.
She needs some.
Oh, my face is like seriously like burning up. Like this is the most goofiest meeting ever, I swear.
Yeah.
All right, public comment.
No. Oh, yeah, that's fine. Well, I was going to move the warrant, but that's all right. We can do that after.
The new Mr. Bob O'Neill.
Mr. O'Neill. Hi, good evening. My name is Bill Fraser. I live in public comment. Is this the forum where I can bring up anything that's not on the agenda?
Yes.
Is that what this is for? Good. Okay, a few weeks ago I sent an email to the town asking about a neighbor who's piling junk at the top of their driveway. It's a pile of rusty scrap metal. It's an eyesore. It's going to be a hazard when the snow starts to fly, which is probably, as you know, living in Maine, can be as early October. Sure.
No, I mean as far as snow flying.
I know, no one wants to talk about it, but this is a pile of junk that the garbage men will never take away, and it's been sitting there since pre-Memorial Day, and the pile keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I was just wondering if the town had any update on that, or?
Sure. I had written back to you, Bill, and told you that we'd have the department heads that had hopefully some jurisdiction to look into it, and so it doesn't meet the criteria for lot coverage and so forth under the codes, so that's not a possibility.
What does that mean?
It's marginally possibly within the right-of-way, so that's a possible issue. But and then as far as the health issue, looked at it from that standpoint, it's not that. But what's going to happen more likely than not in talking to Nathan is that, you know, the town will probably get involved, and it isn't growing, it's going the other way actually. I kind of go by it and watch it.
The scrap metal's growing.
Well, it's not growing, it's less than it was, but we're trying to work with the property owner. I get the idea, the eyesore, the liability issue, all of that, but you know, with this, I guess at the end of the day, in terms of resolution, it may come to the town to resolve it, but we're having difficulty with the obstinate or uncooperative, I guess, property owner, or not able to accomplish the task. Property owner apparently able to get it up to the road, but not able to get it disposed of properly. Right. So we're gonna make a resolution one way or the other, and it may well be the town resolving it in the end. But right now we're still in the mode of trying to. You know, Nathan's been trying to work with him. Scott's been there a couple of times.
Do you have any idea of how long it's going to take?
Well, I'm tired of it, so, and I'm sure you're tired of it. So yeah. I'll see if I can't get it resolved fairly quickly.
All right, great. Thanks for the
address of that?
337 Raymond Hill Road, I think.
Raymond Hill Road, yeah.
It's not really the.
So it's still in the works, is the way I'm taking it then. Yeah. No, I mean they're working on it. They just haven't gotten that answer you want right yet.
It's not really something that I have a great jurisdiction over, but it's an eyesore, and it's a detriment to the quality of life of the neighborhood.
Absolutely.
And it's something that we'll resolve.
Well, I'm not the only neighbor who's complaining.
I understand that.
And
it's come to the point now where it's sort of like somebody who dumps off a refrigerator or television or whatever. Yeah. We have that frequently.
Yeah.
So we'll get it resolved.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
Cool.
See you at yoga.
Anybody else with public comment? Nope. Selectman comment?
Nope, not tonight.
I've had my say enough tonight. Nope. All right. Town manager's report.
Okay, I got a couple of things quickly. I think you're aware of one in a kind of a big way because I talk about it a lot, and that's the whole broadband issue. There will be an article in the Windham Eagle this Friday that I think kind of hopefully will generate some more interest and I guess understanding of the need for high-speed internet and broadband and why it is so important. And so I'm really excited and anxious for that to come out. And nothing has really changed in terms of where we're at this point. You know, it's still the 4 towns working together with Cumberland County, trying to come up with a funding model and mechanism and/or a way to leverage the private sector to get the backbone infrastructure installed on our main roads. But anyhow, I think there is a lack of understanding about what it is and why it is and how it is and why we need it. And so hopefully that article will be helpful in that regard. And so broadband, which we're still talking about that, still trying to work together to make that happen. Another thing that's happened in the kind of the interlocal cooperation area, more in the here and now, is that Nathan had come up with an idea of the possibility of working with Casco and Naples. Both towns are at some level looking at public works, stepping into the public works realm from contract operations. Naples has an employee. Casco, I'm not sure, but I'm not sure they have a public works dedicated employee, but they have an interest in public works functions. So as you know, we're thinking about putting on winter people, and we're going to be putting winter people on as we take the contract back. So Nathan's idea was, well, perhaps we could reach out to our neighboring communities, see if there's any interest in working together, sharing human resources, sharing equipment. And turns out that there is some interest in Naples. They discussed it at that meeting last week. I'm going to meet with the Naples town manager tomorrow. Casco, Dave says there is some interest, but they're a little bit behind Naples. They've just begun talking about it. So one of our core tenets is where it makes sense for the parties to work together, as in towns and or other entities, we should do so. So we're just going to explore that and see if there's something there. At the very least, there's an opportunity, as we have done in the past, to lease some of our not everyday used equipment. An example from a few years ago is the GIS equipment, which I did lease to the town of Casco, saved Casco money, was a revenue stream for us. So I think insofar as we can work together, sharing resources, we should. We're going to begin discussions on that, and I think that's kind of an interesting topic. So that's tomorrow. Ready? Keep on rolling?
Keep rolling.
Keep rolling. Confirm dates for upcoming regular meetings, September 11th and October 9th. Reminder of upcoming holiday schedule, if those dates are okay. Those dates okay?
Yep.
Okay, so Monday, September 3rd is Labor Day. That's all I have. Is that enough?
Oh, nice job on the town office down there, by the way.
Nathan, I would say that's the person who, Nathan and our contractors, and so we're getting the painting done now, but Floyd Brown Construction did the siding and the trim and so forth, and it's cement board, so it's, insofar as anything's forever, this is, I guess, good quality stuff, should be there a long time, and relatively, hopefully, I wouldn't say maintenance free, but maintenance improved.